A very important topic today, green hydrogen in Africa. Extremely popular, extremely hot topic. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Zooms and webinars by now, so I'm just doing a little bit of setup while everybody's joining, and we will get started in just a few moments. For those of you who are just joining us, thanks for joining us today. As you all know, we will be talking about green hydrogen in Africa. I will be very, very pleased to tell you a bit more about all the speakers who have accepted to join us today and share a little bit about their experience in the field and all the different projects that they are working on. We have really like an amazing lineup of speakers, really some of the best experts you can think of in the space, and so this is a particular pleasure to host all of you today and join the discussion. All right, so we have a very busy schedule, so I know some people will be joining a little bit later, but let's get started already. Thank you so much for all of you to take some time out of your busy schedules. Before I give the word to Dr. Longi Hydrogen for the keynote speech, I would like to tell you a little bit about some basic housekeeping rules. Really, really basic, but always important to be reminded of this. First of all, yes, no need to ask. Yes, the full presentations and the recordings will be shared after the event. So we have 2 very dense days of presentations. Today we have 5 different presentations. Tomorrow we have 4. So if you do not manage to follow everything today and tomorrow, don't worry, you will get a second chance to catch up with some of the sessions. And then also the other point I would like to bring your attention to, in terms of functionalities at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you have options for chat and for Q&A. And really, it's important that you remember that the chat is really good to say hi and chat with other listeners, to change some contact details, to raise some questions and start a side discussion if you want. But if you do have specific questions for speakers today, just make sure, please, to submit them through the Q&A option. Because that way, your questions will be recorded, and we will get a chance to follow up with you if we don't get enough time today or tomorrow to address your questions. And if you are following us from LinkedIn, then please drop your questions through the chats. That's the only option on LinkedIn, and we will make sure to take as many of those questions as possible. You will be getting the support from my colleagues Inez and Leoncy on the different chats. So if you have any technical issue or any other question, please make sure to let them know, and they will do their best to assist you. Quick overview of our amazing, and literally I mean it's our amazing lineup of speakers. And give you a very quick overview, but we have some of the most amazing and most active companies in the hydrogen and green hydrogen space in Africa who will be sharing with us over the next 2 days. And I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank all these speakers to have accepted the invitation and to be sharing some of their insights and some of their knowledge with the crowd today. I'm really, really happy that we managed to all make time for this conference. In terms of schedule for today, this is day 1. We will start with a keynote speech from Dr. Innocent Uicharen, who is the chairman of the African Hydrogen Partnership. He will be telling us a little bit about the state of things with regards to hydrogen in Africa. And we'll also tell you a little bit about what the African Hydrogen Partnership does. Will be followed by our first panel discussion on commercial considerations of green hydrogen in Africa, moderated by Dr. Thomas Healy, and hosting speakers such as Frank Mischler from EODev, Erika from John Cockrell, and Abdelaziz Yatrib from Stratec. Following that, we will have a partner showcase with Justin Wu from Longi Hydrogen. Many of you might know Longi as a solar leader when it comes to manufacturing panels, but actually Longi has also started a hydrogen business in terms of manufacturing and fertilizers. And Justin will tell you everything about this later today. And then we will move on to some technology deep dives, 2 technology deep dives. The first one with Ian Fraser from RTS Energy, who will tell us about this very interesting project about hydrogen haul trucks that he's leading with Anglo-American in South Africa. And the second technology deep dive will be delivered by Fernando Granados from EODev, which is working on a very interesting project of green hydrogen for a manufacturing facility in Nigeria. So very dense program today, a lot of very interesting contributions. And without further ado, I would like to introduce our keynote speaker of the day, Dr. Innocent Ujagan, who is the chairman of the African Hydrogen Partnership. A super well-accomplished professional with more than 20 years experience in the energy field. Very interestingly, hydrogen in Africa, green hydrogen, is a place where people from 2 sides work. From the solar industry, a lot of people are very interested in this field, but also people from the oil and gas background. And this is specifically the case of Dr. Ujagan. As you can see, he's worked with Global Energy, Eni, Total, in the past. And to give a super brief summary of this specialty, I would say is really like technology experts with a focus on disruptive engineering innovations, focused especially on reducing inefficiencies everywhere where possible, supply chain, production, everything, but he will tell you more about this. And finally, yes, as you can see, he's a well-accomplished academic as well, with a PhD in subsea engineering from the University of Aberdeen. Dr. Ujagan, thank you so much for accepting the invitation today and sharing a little bit of your knowledge about hydrogen and green hydrogen in Africa. You're particularly well positioned to address the topic, and welcome to this crowd. We're all very much interested to hear your point of view about the industry.
Thank you very much, John. Good to be here to share my view. If you can just see my screen, please just let me know.
Yes, it's coming now. There we go. Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much again, John, for this opportunity. And I want to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone joining, depending on your location in the globe. And to me, this is a remarkable event, and I really look forward to this opportunity. And all protocol observed, as John has mentioned, my name is Innocent Ujagan, and I'm the chairman of the African Hydrogen Partnership, the only continent-wide organization that represents different African nations in the hydrogen-related opportunities within Africa. Can I also use the opportunity to thank the African Solar Industry Association for organizing this great event, because we see this as a very, very remarkable event that will really open greater opportunities for Africa to really see the high potentials in the hydrogen economy. Also, I want to thank all the speakers and the panelists who have already volunteered their time to speak on this afternoon to share their views as well. And I also want to thank all the participants that are connecting online for the opportunity to join this event as well. At this junction, I would like to stress that for the audience listening to this event, hydrogen opportunities in Africa is an opportunity that Africa should not miss. Considering the huge natural potentials in Africa regions, ranging from the powerful wind we have, the good sunshine, the excellent coastlines, for production of hydrogen and the derivatives as well. So this is an era for Africa, and that's why I will encourage your participants listening today to this event to pay attention, because you'll be able to get some couple of insights that will help you to start your journey in your hydrogen journey. And maybe as an organization, or as a corporate organization, or as an individual, or as a government, you can also get some few hints today that will help you, today and tomorrow precisely during this event, that will help you to be able to start your journey, in the hydrogen, economy. So it's a great event, and I look forward to being able to share my view, and also other participants, other speakers, other panelists will also be able to share their views. So please take time to pay attention. I would say that I will then go to my next slide. And as you can see here, I want to go through a couple of slides just to whet your appetite for hydrogen as the energy of the future, and also to share the different opportunities that we as Africa have to be able to harness and use the hydrogen, as an energy carrier, to be precise, and also to be able to create jobs locally, to contribute to the economy, and also to be able to salvage our environment. Looking at this topic, the importance of hydrogen for Africa, I would like to set a context in a way that focuses on the demand and the supply for hydrogen and the derivatives. And in looking at that, we want to look at this statement that current, with the news update, this was one of the recent information that we have on the media based on what the EU Commission have actually posted out on the public domain for us to see. And looking at that statement, the statement says that the EU Commission stated their desire to replace hydrogen for Russian gas with additional 10 million metric tons per year of imported renewable hydrogen from diverse sources, and additional 5 million metric tons per year of domestic renewable hydrogen. Now, what does this statement mean for, in practical terms? I will look at the next slide to look at that in the practical terms. Now, this is just a brief overview of the energy usage mix within UK here. UK is one of the, I would say, one of the countries in Europe here. I just use as a case study to look at the energy consumption. And as you can see from this the left-hand side, you will see the energy mix here. You have the coal about 3.3%. You have the nuclear 6.4%. Then you have the renewable, which is about 14.4%. And you have the natural gas, which is 36.2. And then you have the oil and gas, which is 39.7. And what does this tell us? We're still more dependable in Europe here on oil and gas, and also the natural gas. But now EU have now made a decision. It's okay. They want to turn that around because of the source of the issue we all know currently in Ukraine. And what that means for Europe is that they need another alternative source of energy. And the question is, where can Europe rely on for such an energy? Well, as we look into the details of the presentation, we see the opportunities that Africa could be a potential for Europe to consider. But let's still look again on the right-hand side there. You will discover that more than 80% of our primary energy consumption here in the UK still depends on fossil fuel and nuclear energy. Also, the energy import, you have up to about more than 50% of energy still being imported, and also up to 90% of the oil production from petroleum and gas, and also to 90% are natural gas. But if you put that in a practical context, you can see that there is still a huge dependence on oil and gas, of which Europe have now made a decision. It's okay, they want to look for an alternative source, and the closest proximity of Africa could make Africa a potential for Europe to depend on Africa to meet their demand. So that is the context I want us to see, that as Africa, we are well positioned to really be a major supply zone for neighboring nations and the continents, especially in Europe here, for instance. But again, we're going to look at the details and then see how can we leverage on these opportunities. But to make it in a kind of a summarized format, Europe will look at decarbonizing 3 different sectors. Number one, the industry. And when you talk of the industry, you have the heavy users of this of the fossil energy, like for instance, the iron mill, the glass mill, and all these powerful, heavy industries. They use a lot of energy, but Europe cannot on its own meet this energy demand, definitely. And also the residential, for instance, if Europe is to replace all the different energy use in all the residents, I can tell you Europe cannot be able to meet up that supply. And also in the transport sector, of course, Europe is doing a lot in terms of the transport sector, but there's still a huge amount of the transport sector that really have not been reached. For instance, the heavy duty trucks, the shipping side of transportation have not been reached. All of this creates the opportunity that Africa have in their hands, which means Europe already have a demand. You know, like I said, I'm setting the context of supply and demand. Europe already have a great demand in their table. Africa the question is, can Africa be a potential supply on their own to meet this demand? The answer is yes. So that will now take me to the next aspect, looking at the application of this very hydrogen. Again, this is just a generalized application, but the major specific application goes more than what we're seeing here. You could see the heavy industry, the transportation industry. You could also see the shipping industry. You know, you could also see even all the other sectors as well, like maybe you have the iron ore, the different cement factories, the trucks, all of this, the cars, the transport sectors, all of this need, you know, the opportunity of hydrogen. You know, you may say, why hydrogen? There are other alternatives that could be used, like for instance, the electric, vehicles. But again, when you talk of these heavy trucks, the potential of electric is quite low because this, you know, it takes a lot of usage. For instance, if you're driving, let's say, a heavy truck from here up to about 2,000, let's say about 200 miles, for instance, 200, 300 miles, you're going to run into many instances to have to charge. But with hydrogen, the energy potential, the energy, in hydrogen is more and can be able to really serve this, these trucks and all these heavy duty vehicles and also the shipping industry much more better, which means the potential in hydrogen is better than the electric for these heavy duties, especially the heavy duty trucks, the heavy duty shipping, transportation sections, the heavy duty trains, and all of these heavy duty, equipment, they all need hydrogen to be able to power those equipments. And then that will now take me to the next slide where you see the potentials in Africa. Now, on the left side, we're looking at the wind, for instance. In Africa, we have a huge potential in terms of wind. So different, coastlines have very, very superb winds that can really be able to create really good energy for hydrogen. Of course, we're not neglecting the fact that there will be, some energy local use demand. Of course, that is there. But however, we're looking at now an opportunity where we create we create, a unique system where every opportunity to manufacture or to produce hydrogen have an energy being brought into the system, which means they're not just only taking away, but they're also creating. So which means we are creating more for use in Africa. And also you have to have the solar. For solar, solar is great in Africa. You can see on the right side there, all the red zones you're seeing in there, these are areas with heavy potential in terms of, solar energy, which can be used for production of hydrogen through electrolysis systems. But again, we also look at the water as well, the coastlines. Of course, some regions have, water issues, which could lead to, challenges in terms of producing hydrogen. We know that, but some regions have good water system. So we could leverage on that opportunity to look at regions that have the wind systems, we produce there. Regions that have the solar system, we produce there. Also regions that have the available hydro system to feed into the power generation, we also leverage on all of those areas. The message here is Africa can work together under an alliance where each nation in Africa have an area they're focusing on to help in producing hydrogen, which can help boost the economy in Africa. That takes me now to the economic benefits. What are the benefits when it comes to hydrogen? You could see there, number one is low cost, price, competitive, carbon-free hydrogen. Of course, at the moment, the price is still on the high side. Why? Because of the technology. But we look forward to the future, for instance, 5-10 years from now, where we can see the price of hydrogen coming as low as possible. In short, as we speak now, some of the different producers are already looking at opportunities of what we call having a huge number of demand at a time, which can bring down the production costs. That is actually what Africa should be looking at. where, each of the nations are all coming together to put together what we may call a unified order at a time where the quantity and the volume drives down the price. That could be an opportunity that Africa can take advantage of. Also, we have the natural hydrogen. Of course, these need to be verified. Natural hydrogen is found in the ground. That's what we have to date. But of course, the main study is still ongoing at the moment. With the proof of all those studies, we can see and understand more on the possibilities and the potentials in those hydrogen, which I believe can be beneficial to Africa. Now, in terms of the benefits as well, you can look at the domestic aspect. We can use it for like a power backup system for Africa. We can also use it for green fertilizers, green ammonias, all these derivatives. They can all be valuable in Africa. So we're not looking at only import demand or import demand not to other nations. We're looking at local use as well, where hydrogen can be very much beneficial in application. Also within the African nations, they can be opportunity to export as well. Of course, at the moment, we know the infrastructure are still in developmental phase, but we believe that at some point we'll get to a stage where all of these infrastructures will be in place. Of course, it's a step at a time, but the drive at the moment from the global, effort shows that a step is being taken at a time. And at some point, all these infrastructures will be in place. But again, Africa needs to take advantage, not to get to a point where all these potentials are there, but nothing is being done about them. That's why this event is important, that we sensitize, Africa about the opportunity and the potential right in their, within them, which they can leverage on to be, an energy producer in Africa there. And also it can also help, in the area of social and environmental benefits, where you see the area of, protection of our climate. Of course, if we are producing hydrogen, that will help to, decarbonize some of our heavy, carbon emission, machines and all those heavy duty machines as well. And also in minimizing the impact of biodiversity and also biohabitat. These are opportunities that we have in Africa. The natural hydrogen aspect also is there. We have already one of the field in Mali, and I believe some other field are also in the research phases where it will be discovered at some point. But the take home here is that Africa should know there is a potential with them. There are economic benefits, there are social benefits, but we need to leverage on each of these potentials and to maximize the opportunity for producing hydrogen that will help the economy and also help the local job creation, as well as help in even meeting our energy demand. This cannot be an opportunity that Africa can take hold of and meet the energy demand that is currently lacking in Africa. Having said, I want to look at the successes and the challenges. Are there success so far in the use of this hydrogen? Of course, in Africa there are. Or you look at the Egypt green hydrogen plant, the South Africa's Hydrogen Valley, the Mauritania project NEOA, the Namibia's SCDI green hydrogen project, Morocco's Hevo ammonia project, green fertilizer plant in Kenya, which is in feasibility phase. So these are all potentials. Of course, each of these projects have different aspects they're focusing on. Some of them are still in developmental phase. Some of them have actually proceeded into the FDF, into the main bid phase. Some of them are also still at the feasibility study phase. But however, there is already an uptick in terms of starting the projects. That's one thing that's important. But are there challenges? Oh yes, there are challenges. One of the challenges like you can see there is technological access. At the moment, technology is a challenge in Africa because we know Africa, when it comes to technology, we still struggle with so many technologies. And now the reason is because, of course, financing technology is quite expensive in Africa. In the global world today, there's a lot of huge, commitment from the government in terms of investing on the different research going on for technology, but this doesn't happen as much in Africa. We know that. So having said that, technology will be a challenge. We need the right technology that is cost efficient and also affordable. We need a fund for economically and commercially feasible projects. Africa is not so opportune to subsidy. We need to be clear about that. So for African projects, we don't look at subsidy as a way of meeting those project needs, but we look at the potential for those projects to be economically and commercially feasible. And also we also look at the energy balance as well. Because for instance, in some of the African countries, they're still struggling with the grids. They're still struggling in meeting up with the demand. But in these cases, it can be challenging to remove from the grid when they're not meeting the demand. So that's where the opportunity now comes for Africans to come together. Even when these challenges are there, they are solvable. We can put a program in place where each of these execution of the hydrogen projects can generate energy back into the system. So they're not really taking away, they're generating back into the system. That's possible. Also, we have the aspect of the security and political instability, which is a concern to many of the investors. But these are all problems that are solvable. These are all risks that are manageable. Also, the conflicting rules and the regulations in many of the countries. At the moment, many of the nations don't have, a well-defined hydrogen policy or hydrogen strategy. So it can be conflicting in that instance. When you go from one country to the other, you're seeing different regulations, different rules that can really put the investors off. These are challenges that need to be solved if we as Africa want to really maximize this opportunity of hydrogen. Not only that, the government policies and awareness. At the moment, I can tell you many of the African governments don't even have much awareness about hydrogen. When you say hydrogen, some of them look at it, what are you talking of? But that means they seem to be aware of the potential and the benefit that lies ahead of them with the use of hydrogen. So these are challenges that the investors will face when they go into such nation to establish such projects. Having said that, I will not go into one very important aspect, which if you miss any other thing, don't miss this at all. If Africa will be able to maximize the opportunity ahead of us, the key thing in there is alliance. We need to bond together under alliance where each of the countries is working together under a unified platform where we can be able to take, this opportunity and maximize it in terms of the technology aspect, in terms of the financing aspect, in terms of also creating the local opportunities within Africa, where our young graduates and those who are in the university system can be trained on the opportunities in this very in the hydrogen economy. In the hydrogen, the hydrogen opportunities are great in Africa. So that's where alliance is key. But as you can see there, African Hydrogen Partnership have already started that alliance. Today, as we speak, it's an organization that is the only continent-wide organization that's solely dedicated to green and natural hydrogen, representing all the African countries to explore opportunities for hydrogen in Africa. And not only that, we represent the whole Africa continent, for all these opportunities. We don't only just, bring African countries to the table, but we also support them on a one-on-one basis to make sure that they leverage on these opportunities and also share intelligent information that will help them, as we align with the world. So what AFP is doing at the moment, we're aligning globally. So any company around the world can join the African Hydrogen Partnership. And under this partnership, we bring all this alliance globally. We learn from what's happening in other aspects of the country, other aspects of the world, of the continent. We bring all those lessons learned into Africa. And we're able to share those information with African companies that are willing to really explore these opportunities. So for companies, corporate, government, individuals who want to explore the opportunity of hydrogen, African Hydrogen Partnership is here to support you. So if you join us as a partner or as a member, then we're able to share with you how you can start the journey, we're able to support you along the journey, we're able to connect you with other companies that are already creating these opportunities elsewhere in the world. And not only that, we represent, we're an organization from all around the world are free to join AHP. So whether you are in Europe or in Asia or in America, you're free to join AHP as a member. But however, it's also important to mention that AHP is an African organization run by Africans in Africa. But anywhere in the world, you can join AHP. We also facilitate commercial and economically feasible projects in Africa. So we don't depend on subsidy for project exploration within AHP. We look for opportunities that are economically and commercially feasible, because that's the only opportunity that Africa needs at this moment. Subsidy is not prevalent in Africa. And so we don't want to depend on subsidy, but we want to depend on projects that are economically and commercially feasible. And just to put it in a much more easier understanding, there are already existing potentials in Africa where we can create hydrogen opportunities that are commercially and economically feasible. We've started exploring some of them already as AHP, looking at it with our partners, opportunities in the area of green fertilizer, green urea, green nodes that are locally consumed, even opportunities in backup system where you use hydrogen as your backup power systems. These are all already in exploration. So it's an opportunity for every African country that want to really explore this opportunity to come into alliance with us while we explore this opportunity together. Now, I want to lastly look at the project initiatives and collaborations within the green and the natural hydrogen. Number one, we see the hydrogen demand, locally. We're looking at project now. What are the projects that AHP has actually been into at the moment. Of course, due to confidentiality purpose, we may not be able to share some of them because they're still in the developmental phase. But however, it's important to know that there are projects in the area of hydrogen production of the derivatives like urea, ammonia, green fertilizers, and also looking at the export opportunities as well. Of course, export opportunities still in process because facilities are needed. For instance, the shipping side, the piping side that will be needed to pipe this hydrogen from maybe Africa into Europe or other part of the world. So these are all being explored. But while waiting for these export opportunities to be ripe for harvest, for exploring, we are looking at the local opportunities. So local opportunities is our focus at the moment. How can Africa benefit locally? Of course, export is the long-term goal, but the short-term goal at the moment is let's focus on Africa. There are potentials in Africa where green hydrogen can be utilized, to boost the energy demand in Africa, and also to meet the demand, and not only meeting the demand, but also to create an economy that will be helpful, that will be of benefit to Africa, where our economy become boosted, because now we're depending on energy, we're importing energy. We cannot instead of importing energy, we can create our energy locally and avoid that importation. We save a huge amount of money. We boost our economy, we create more jobs, and we create different opportunities with the derivatives. For instance, in ammonia, fertilizers, a lot of our farmers today, they are suffering because fertilizer import is creating a huge economic deficit for them because they have to import from elsewhere in the world. The fertilizers will not come on time. These opportunities are being explored at the moment through AHP to look at what can we do locally for the benefit of Africa using hydrogen and the derivatives. Having said that, I want to say thank you very much for the opportunity to listen, and I'm here to take any question that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wijaren. Very powerful and positive overview, and very difficult exercise as well to summarize all these exciting developments in just a few minutes. But I think you've done extremely well. Thank you very much. Before we move on to the next session, there were some questions related to the last topic about export and the current realities of transport. Andrew and Ian, for example, were asking, how can it actually be transported to off-takers, for example, in Europe? What is practical, what is not? I'm sure this will be very widely discussed tomorrow in the panel session on technical aspects that we will discuss. But if you don't mind, could you please give us like a 2 minutes point of view on that export and transport aspect?
Thank you very much, John. On the export aspect, like I've mentioned during the discussions, I'll call it, an ongoing activities because the infrastructure is important. For instance, the pipelines, if we want to transport to pipeline, for the shipping, it's a possibility. But however, at the moment with Europe, shipping still have a lot of standard to be developed in terms of the policies. At the moment, I can tell you, I don't think any of the Europe ports will allow you to ship hydrogen into their port. The reason is because it's still classified as a high explosive product. So there are policies and what I would call rules and regulations that will govern how we ship, how we transport, but these are all still in the process. So in terms of export, I would say it's not at the immediate. It's a long-term goal as the development is ongoing. I think I also saw on the news recently, Europe is considering now a pipeline that we build all the way from Europe into Africa. But like, pipeline, construction doesn't take, a day or a year, it takes years to develop. So I would say for any company or anyone interested in hydrogen, let's focus on the local consumption. There's a huge opportunities locally that we can be able to explore while we're waiting for the long-term goal, which is exporting hydrogen. We can concentrate on the local at this instance. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I think, yes, this is a very strong message about local use, local production. And this is actually probably going to be one of the topics discussed in the next session, which I will introduce now. So we are going to be talking about the commercial considerations of green hydrogen in Africa. This session will be moderated by Dr. Thomas Hillig from TH Energy. I would like to, I will leave Dr. Hillig present his panelists, but I would like to give a quick introduction of Thomas. He's the founder and managing director of TH Energy based in Germany, with more than 20 years experience in the energy space, and he's been leading TH Energy now for 8 years. He's been working with a diversity of companies: Clean Horizon Consulting, Innotech Solar, Alstom. His specialty originally was really like microgrids and mini-grids for off-grid renewable energy, especially for industrial companies. And over the years, he's added some skills to his portfolio with a very intense influencing activity, and has been awarded for this several times for being one of the top global influencers on solar and energy topic. And I believe many of you listening today may also know him from the very popular Hydrogen group on LinkedIn, which is definitely one of the biggest ones around. So Dr. Hillig, I'm really pleased to welcome you today. I will give you co-hosting rights now, so you can also appear on the screen and join us. And thank you very much for accepting the invitation. And please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, John, for this very kind introduction. Before Innocent has already covered all the polite part, he has thanked the panelists and so on. Let me be the rude German who starts with some self-advertising. John has already mentioned my LinkedIn group, 20,000 members. I hit right now on the return button. If you want to join, here is the link. From now on, I try to behave. I will
invite you and your panelists to also turn on their cameras so people can follow you more easily. Thank you.
Okay. In my case, it's sometimes better not to turn the camera on. I'm just going through a cold, so if my eyes are really red, that is the reason. And I have all the promotion there for the LinkedIn group in the back once again, so it could be better in my case to switch the camera off. No, thank you very much again for the introduction. We were supposed to have a very balanced panel. Someone from a project developer, someone from an electrolyzer manufacturer, and a catalyst. In the last minute, we got the bad news that Abdelaziz Yatribi from SCATEC has to cancel. So it will be a panel of just the three of us. Nevertheless, I think that our two panelists that remain are very experienced, and they will also be able to cover the key aspects, or many of the key aspects that are about projects. Let me directly go to the introduction. Eric Dabé, he is Senior Sales Advisor at John Cockerill, a Belgian manufacturer of alkaline electrolyzers. Eric has more than 15 years sales and marketing experience in the field of water electrolysis, especially in the EMEA region. Eric, how much is in EMEA if you talk about your latest experience, and of course you also have 1 to 2 minutes to introduce your person and your company. With I mean Africa, obviously.
Yes, so we have actually some activities in Africa, as you say, Thomas. I guess to date we have probably 10 references. We have delivered a few systems in the steel industry, for instance, as well as in the power sector. And since you leave me a couple of minutes, I will make also a brief introduction of John Cockerill. That will be very brief, but I think this is a good opportunity to give you an updated status about what we are currently doing at John Cockerill. So a lot of activities. So We are truly accelerating our activities these days. 2021 was an all-time high year for the company. We have secured contracts for 200 megawatts of hydrogen production, and we have commissioned 150 megawatts of new system. We are also investing quite massively in new factories. So for instance, we are ramping up in China, so we will reach 1 gigawatt of annual capacity by end of this year. Besides that, we are also building a new factory in France. It's a gigafactory, and the first phase will be completed by 2023. And last but not least, we have been joining forces with the leading renewable company Greenko in India. And together we are about now to build a new facility in India to address this interesting market with a 2 gigawatt factory. So a lot of positive things ongoing at Jungletree these days.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Eric. Innocent, before you said AHP, it's an African organization that is based in Africa. Right now, as we have this cancellation on the panel, it's more 3 rather old white men being working out of Europe, talking about green hydrogen in Africa. But it's not that bad. We try really to focus on the Africa aspects. And after the introduction of Frank, I think you won't have many doubts that this will really be about Africa and not about these 3 white men sitting somewhere in Northern Europe being afraid of not having warm apartments or houses next winter. That this is not why we are here. Frank Mischler leads the P2X Hub Brussels, an entity of the German Development Corporation, GIZ, that supports developing and emerging economies in decarbonizing the economies and to use Power-to-X as an opportunity in their climate strategies. Frank, I'm very glad that you're here. I also give you 1 to 2 minutes to come up with a proper introduction of yourself and your organization.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Thomas. Thanks a lot, Davi, Eric. Well, the P2X Hub is part of the German Development Corporation, GIZ, which is well known to many of the listeners, I suppose. We are in maybe every African country at the moment with our people, supporting the government and all other actors in many development issues, but also on energy and more on hydrogen. The P2X Hub is the Center of Excellence of GIZ on hydrogen. We provide technical assistance for all the kind of the initial steps to embark on a hydrogen economy, strategy building, institution building, capacity building, but also in the initial steps of defining projects, developing projects up to when investors take over. And I think today we talk about the latter point.
Thank you very much. If we talk about hydrogen, we sometimes hear very, very big numbers. So just some projects or initiatives. In Namibia, we talk about an investment sum of $9.3 billion US. Let me just remark that the GDP, the annual GDP, obviously, of Namibia is only slightly higher. In Mauritania, we talk about green hydrogen that is initiative that is twice as big, and the GDP of Mauritania is smaller, around $8 billion US than that of Namibia. Is it something that really is linked to hydrogen? To talk about big numbers, Frank, I think you are advising companies or governments, also players in the field. Is it one of your key advices to tell them to go for big numbers?
Well, there's no need to go for big numbers, but of course the big numbers hit the headline and not the small numbers. But I think Innocent clearly showed what we are about to do. Now we are going to change the entire energy system, the entire way we are living. We are replacing all fossil fuels, and this is an enormous market. And if you want to replace that with hydrogen and derivatives, let's not we talk about that, we should talk about other things and not hydrogen really later on. You need massive investments, obviously. And if you want to bring down the cost, this will work with gigafactories, with massive investments. Does that mean it's the only possibility? No. We have many examples of very small investments that make a lot of sense locally for domestic markets that solve a very specific problem, which might be a very good opening or start for many, many countries or investors that listen here. But the headlines, obviously, is the Mauritania Noor case and NEOM in Saudi Arabia and all the other great things that, yeah, that's quite normal, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We already, or Innocent already addressed the topic of transporting hydrogen. So there is a topic of bringing it right now to Europe. I mentioned it at the very beginning. We are here getting a little bit worried about Russian gas, that we won't have access to Russian gas anymore. And we are hoping for hydrogen as a short-term solution. You mentioned that there could be a pipeline from Northern Africa to Europe, or transporting hydrogen or green ammonia by ships. What would be a realistic time horizon to do so?
Well, there are two pipelines, right? From Morocco to Spain and from Tunisia to Italy. They both have to be retrofitted to be adapt for hydrogen. And it is, of course, true that we don't transport hydrogen. It's a gas, so you transport a derivative. And green ammonia may be the most promising because there are already a lot of production and a lot of use of green ammonia, but not at the quantity that would be needed. So you would need an enormous investment, not only in the production of ammonia, also at the harbors where you receive the ammonia in ammonia crackers, so to put it back into something that is usable, and then this distributed within Europe if you have still this export case. So that's a lot of steps, a lot of investments, and that should have taken many decades if it wasn't for the 8 March announcement of the EU to bring it back all 10 years to 2030. So it is a massive work and a huge challenge for everyone involved in this hydrogen community to do everything quicker. The backbone 2040, which is the infrastructure in Africa that should connect the African continent to Europe, has been brought forward by 10 years from 2040 to 2030. I don't know if this is feasible, but it signals to you the readiness and the huge ambition and motivation of the European Union to make it happen. So I can't give you a date. There's some hydrogen production already now feasible and is working, and you could ramp it up, and green ammonia may be the most promising. Others are a little bit further down the line. If you talk about sustainable aviation fuel, you may wait for another 10 years for a large quantity, no? Not a little bit that we see right now.
Thanks for not giving me any hope for next winter, so I will directly run to the shop to buy some thick jackets. Yeah, and I would suggest that we focus right now when we talk about offtake here in this discussion also very much, as Innocent has proposed, on local or use of hydrogen in Africa. Eric, you are a Belgian-Chinese fusion. You are the new kid on the block, and at the same time the old kid on the block. You are the market leader, if I read your publications on water electrolysis. If we talk about references in Africa, you said you have some, but percentage-wise it's rather small. When will this change? When will Africa be a main market for you? What are your internal expectations?
Well, obviously, we do see Africa as a huge potential in terms of green hydrogen, and this is first of all related to the access of extremely competitive solar energy in the years to come. But as Frank indicated, it is clear that we do rely on financing, investment in all those projects in Africa. But it is clear that we see a huge opportunity. And certainly at the horizon already 2025, 2030, we do expect a lot of activities and projects popping up.
Okay. You are doing water electrolysis. Let me quickly, it's a technical topic. We want to focus here a little bit more on commercial topics, but nevertheless. When I post something on social media about hydrogen in Africa, the typical reaction is, or at least one comment is, okay, you want to steal the water from the poor African guys, and then use the hydrogen in Africa. From a technology point of view, you are into alkaline water electrolysis, if I am correct.
Correct.
How does this compare to PEM and to evolving technologies regarding water use, and maybe also to another behavior or another feature that is typical for Africa? We are in a region, in comparison at least to Northern Europe, where you are based, with rather high temperatures. Is there something that, if we specifically talk about projects in Africa, that we should have in mind?
Well, first of all, maybe I could make a brief comparison of PEM and alkaline. I think both technologies have their strengths and maybe weaknesses, obviously. But what we do see in the near future is that the alkaline technology is probably more mature, and also the business case is a bit better when it comes to alkaline, especially at very large scale. So the PEM is coming clearly, and we are following up very closely from our side. Maybe, who knows, one day we will have a PEM in-house in our company. But right now, we do believe that the alkaline technology is a way to go in the next 5-10 years. And I think this is also the conclusion of many reports and studies which have been made lately. When it comes to the site conditions in Africa, it is clear that some regions are really hot. But if you look at the history of alkaline electrolysis, it will tell you that actually quite very large hydrogen production plant by water electrolysis have already been installed in Africa. I'm thinking about this plant in Egypt, nearby the dam in Aswan, where it was built in the 70s, 80s, between 250 megawatt plant. So this is something very, I would say, common. In Zimbabwe also, it was built in the 70s, a 70 megawatt system based on alkaline technology. So this is something I would say very common. Today, of course, we are ramping up, we are developing larger system, improving the efficiency, but we don't see any problem in building large-scale hydrogen production in Africa.
There's a project in South Africa, and the manufacturer says, or the project players say, that the electrolyzers have to be repurposed to produce or to use renewables as an input. Is this something complex, or the repurposing of existing electrolyzers? Something I cannot really, at a more commercial guy, I cannot really imagine what it actually means, this repurposing. I thought, okay, there's electricity as input, and what needs to be repurposed if you want to use these existing electrolyzers for generating green hydrogen.
So you can say until now, most of those very large systems, they have been grid connected. And it is true that at very large scale, it has been demonstrated that you can actually connect both alkaline and the PEM system to a source of renewables. So they can cope with the fluctuation. On the other hand, at very large scale and on a commercial basis, they still remain to be demonstrated. So we don't see a significant barrier that those systems can be developed, obviously. But of course, we will need to work in close cooperation with, for instance, converter developers and renewable energy developers as well.
Thank you very much, Eric. Frank. There, we have mentioned, there's so much talk about hydrogen, the big numbers. And of course, it is at least green hydrogen or powering electrolyzers with renewables is a rather new solution. But why don't we see more massive investments into green hydrogen, or why is it only starting right now? What has changed in recent years?
Why, with all the talk that we have on hydrogen, you could assume we are in the middle of the economic transition already, and that there's a massive market. But it isn't. Most of the projects that you hear about are announcements only, and there isn't any investment yet. Even some of the projects that Innocent mentioned are big dreams, Nur in Mauritania, but there's no finance yet, and they don't build yet. And why is that so? Because I think what we have to explain before we get into this is that there's sometimes by some people a confusion that hydrogen simply replaces oil and gas. So you take out oil and gas, you plug in hydrogen, and the system works like this, continues like this. But it's not the case, no? You now have to, we are talking about very, very different sectors and very, very different products. Hydrogen is hardly ever used. What is used is ammonia, it's methanol, it's e-kerosene, it's e-diesel, it's many other products, which is a derivative of hydrogen. So you first produce hydrogen, then you produce the other stuff. This you then can ship and can use and on so forth. But then you have very different sectors. And now, up to now, we talked a lot about exporting to the EU. But in the EU, you have regulations for each of those different sectors. So from the moment that you invest in a plant, you need to know what the off-taker is, who the off-taker is, and what the regulations are. So suppose you produce ammonia and your off-taker is fertilizer, this big company in Spain. Okay, let's sell it to them. And they agree. You wouldn't be able to switch to ammonia for ship fuel later on because it's a different system, different regulation. You need to know, then you wouldn't be certified for it. So you need to know all the steps. Furthermore, in the past or currently, oil is produced by someone in Saudi Arabia, sold to Europe, and they don't have to care what usage this oil will have. Does it land in a car? Does it land in a truck? Is it used for chemical production? Is it used for something else? It doesn't matter. You just sell the commodity at the harbor of Rotterdam, and that's it, out of your business, you get your money. With hydrogen, according to the rules of the EU, you have to know the entire value chain and be green the entire value chain. So when you sell your premium product to someone in Rotterdam and you are below the threshold and it's green, and someone later on in the value chain messes it up because, I don't know, dirty transport or dirty intermediate steps, and it's above the threshold, it's no longer green, so you lose your premium. So you need to be very careful, need to know all the actors along the steps, need to know the off-taker, and that is highly, highly complex in a sector that's not yet established. We are building the market as we speak. The market doesn't exist yet. So this complexity and the absence of all those regulations, because they're still under debate by the European Union, make it very, very difficult to define a good business case where I put those 8.6 billion or whatever huge number you quoted and say, well, I know what I get, because right now you don't know what price you will get. You don't know which conditions you have to meet. And there are simply too many unknowns, hence this huge pressure on the European Union to get more clarity on how this market shall function.
What is your recommendation then? To stay out of the hydrogen market segment? No, I'm just kidding.
No. Well, I just say that if your ambition is to produce hydrogen or derivative and sell it to Europe, be very, very clear about the rules of the game, because you need to know it very clearly. So, for instance, they have this additionality principle. So all the renewable energy that you use to feed your electrolyzer has to be additional. You build it for this electrolyzer. You need to know that, because some assume, well, they just use excess renewable, they have from an old hydro dam, and that's it. No, it doesn't work, wouldn't be eligible. And there are zillion other details and rules that you need to be aware of. If you're aware of, and if you have a solid business case, by all means, go for it. I think, and I think Eric said it as well, it will take another decade or what until we are there. So use this decade wisely. I think this is the main recommendation. Start now with pilots, something that makes sense in your country for your own economy, and don't think immediately big numbers and billions and euros and export. Learn how to work with hydrogen and derivatives. And once you are very good at it and it makes sense, it is embedded in your economy, and the rules with Europe have been clarified, because in the next couple of years it will be much more clearer. It will be much easier to enter this market, and no worries, you won't come too late. It's such a massive demand. Even if you wait a couple of years, it'll be fine.
I understand that you're not responsible for the big numbers, so you also have more the local perspective in mind. I should have asked this question way before. With whom do you actually work? Do you work with governments? Do you work with companies? As well, with European governments, only with African governments, same for the countryside. So what does your typical day look like? To whom do you do your phone calls? The more you explained, the more I got a wrong picture here.
Oh, no,
In Eric's case is pretty easy. He sells electrolyzers to whoever is willing to pay them, I guess. But I will come back to that in a minute.
Okay. My personal daily job is I sit in Brussels. I try to get to know what the policies and the rules are in the European Union, and to be able to advise anyone outside of the European Union to do business with the EU. And I work a lot on global standards so that we have some harmonization. But as I was saying at the very beginning, the PTX hub, it's like 25 people. We are part of GSZ, which is 20,000 people, and there may be like 300 working on hydrogen day in, day out. And many of them are in Africa. So we have our people in Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Namibia, Kenya, South Africa, you name it, and many countries, and there are more by the day. And so our main work is with the government and state entities to slowly build the system, get a strategy, build the institution, train people, analyze what is the niche of your country, what kind of economy do you already have, where there could be a switch. So many have chemical plants who use hydrogen as a feedstock. Think very domestic, think local, national, what do you need? Then GSZ being a big organization, we have many programs. So I have many colleagues who do this kind of typical work of accompanying an investor or a project owner up to the point where there's a bankable project and he or she can talk to an investment bank or a development bank. We at the PTX Hub, we are one step removed. So we are advising all of those programs in how to do it in the case of hydrogen. So we are thinking more about, okay, what's the complexity? What's the characteristics of a hydrogen investment? Tomorrow, there will be one of my colleagues from the Get Invest project talk about the Get Invest hydrogen window, which is a dedicated investment window for hydrogen and power to X projects, where you can put forward your idea and they will assist you in finding finance. And if it is hydrogen, the chances are they will call us and say, advise us. Is this a solid case or isn't it? And maybe this is the best. I will post the website in the chat box, but it is a discussion for tomorrow, so maybe I shouldn't talk too much about it.
All right. Eric, my apologies. I just described you a little bit as the prostitute of the hydrogen market. I think you do more thorough analysis. If someone comes and wants to buy 400 megawatt of electrolysis capacity, probably this is not where you say immediately, wow, these are my numbers for the year. How do you evaluate projects at this stage if you're addressed, if you get new leads?
Yeah, that's a good question, Thomas. So And Frank mentioned it, we are obviously talking big numbers in this business these days. And being an electrolyzer manufacturer, this is some days a challenging part of our business to match the demand with the production. So basically at this stage, I would say the capacity is not really an issue, because even though we are talking about big numbers in this market, I would say there are sufficient capacity to deliver. So major electrolyzer OEMs are now ramping up in terms of capability to deliver. So they're increasing the production. They are also strengthening the organization so they can cope with the steadily growing demand. So ultimately, the worldwide capacity will go in line with the market demand. However, we cannot deny that there is maybe a risk of capacity shortage at some point. We see that the soaring natural gas prices, the conflict in Ukraine could accelerate the hydrogen economy. And to be completely open with you, we see that already some customers today are a bit concerned about this potential capacity shortage. So some of them have a dialogue with us. They are willing to reserve the capacity, so they really secure the quantity of electrolyzers they may need for their project.
So until recently, the discussion when we talked about hydrogen very often stopped, okay, it's not efficient. We lose 1/3 or however you do it, round trip efficiency to some extent, of course. It's not the efficiency that we should focus on. It's only part of the total equation. In the end, it is about costs. And but what regarding efficiency and in general, what is actually the technology progress in this field? Mm-hmm. You mentioned it's an old technology. What has changed lately? What can we expect in the following years? Also, as investors, does it make sense to wait, or is it a good moment to invest right now? Or is it like in solar, you wait for 1 year and then the prices are coming down rapidly? You know where I'm looking at. What can we expect from the technology or from the electrolysis side?
Let me talk about the LCOH because I think that the LCOH does reflect if green hydrogen is a good business case or not. So the levelized cost of hydrogen, and this is obviously the best way of measuring how we are progressing in this field clearly. So if you look at the LCOH today, this is clear that the capex and the energy are the most dominating parameters and have the highest impact in the LCOH calculation. So to give you a rough idea, the electricity cost on the LCOH will account in most cases something between 50 and 80%. So it is clear that the electricity cost is the main driver for the green hydrogen business case. So we do see that, of course, in the years to come, solar has a huge potential, wind as well, and especially in Africa, if we look at the horizon 2030, we could see price of solar which will go down even lower than $20 per megawatt hour. And this is basically the main driver for the green hydrogen cost, the LCOH. And next to this, we are definitely working actively on the technology. We are improving it. We are moving to lean manufacturing of the electrolyzers. We are securing framework agreements with our main partners, transformer, rectifiers, etc. So we do believe that in terms of capex, the technology will definitely go quite significantly down in the next 5-10 years. But this business is definitely driven by the market demand. So unless we do see those huge projects coming up in the next 5-10 years, of course, that will be difficult to achieve those costs out. But we do believe this is coming. I mentioned it in terms of LCOH, so the electricity has a huge impact. And we are also looking very much at the efficiency of the electrolyzer. So to give you a rough idea, I would say most electrolyzers today, they have an efficiency of in a range of 70–80%. And we do believe that we can improve this by another at least 5, maybe 10% in the years to come. So this will definitely strengthen very much the green hydrogen business case.
Frank, we just discussed about efficiency, and the efficiency does not stop when we have hydrogen in many cases. You talked about green ammonia, and we have a question here from the audience. That's from Moritz Breikman about conversion to ammonia. What are the conversion economics? Are the losses not prohibitive?
Is it expensive? Yes, of course it's expensive. Can I give you a number now? I can't. Our problem is that we have to get rid of oil and gas. Okay, so that's not the comparison we can have. It's obsolete. We have to find something else. Hydrogen is a wonderful business case, and the numbers of the hydrogen cost is going down all the time, and those who follow it see the numbers below $2 a kilo, 1.5. The US wants to have $1 per kilo by 1 decade, so intended by 2030. But the hydrogen has to be transported to the point of use, and the most economic, obviously, is the pipeline. But there's only a few pipelines. So for all other production sites, shipping is the best. And what do you ship? I mean, hydrogen to ship is very, very difficult. What is easy to ship is green ammonia, because we know how to handle this stuff. It's a commodity that's traded already for a long time. And yes, then we have to convert it. There's just no other way to do it. I think right now we have a race for getting the best technology for the cheapest price, and everyone competes. It's not yet spoken if green ammonia will be the best solution. It's currently heralded as the most convincing. But let me say another thing. Currently in our mindset is that we have to bring everyone to the user. And I argue a lot that this is not necessarily the case. So if you are able to produce, say, sustainable aviation fuel, the cheapest in Australia and Chile and maybe South Africa, it doesn't make very economic sense to bring this stuff from Australia to the port of Rotterdam and then bring it to Charles de Gaulle Airport and to Heathrow Airport and so on, and fill it in a plane that flies back to Australia. Well, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So it would be much better from a global perspective, it would even be better for climate, to use the sustainable aviation fuel where it is produced as closest as possible to it. So in Perth, in this case, or in Santiago de Chile, in the other case. And then have a possibility for a European airline, like Lufthansa, like Air France, to pay the premium, the price, and get accredited for this for the green component of the sustainable aviation fuel. Therefore, they would reach their quota at the cheapest way possible. We would produce sustainable aviation fuel where it is most cheapest, and we would ramp up this market as quickly as possible. It would be beneficial for everyone as long as we created a system that's trustworthy and reliable. So we don't necessarily need to bring everything to Europe. We can think about other solutions out of the box a little bit. I think this is a good moment for it.
How does this translate into industrial applications? Is it a little bit like with aluminum production in Iceland and so on, that the industry, like steel production, will move to regions where hydrogen can be produced most economically? For example, what you mentioned, Australia, or in Africa, where you have the best framework conditions. Is this something what we could expect also?
I mean, it could very well happen. I wouldn't expect ThyssenKrupp to close their factories in Germany and move to Mauritania because the iron ore is in Mauritania, the hydrogen is in iron, so let's produce all our steel there. I don't think it's so easy because you need a lot of expertise, you need access to the market, you need to be close to your consumer. So there are many, many other factors that speak for their current location. But that doesn't rule out that certain primary products are prepared in Mauritania. Iron sponge, for instance, which is a first product that's then used for all kinds of other iron and steel production further down. That would have the advantage that we don't need, I don't know, 5 ships of stone going to Rotterdam, going by train to Duisburg, and they get the iron ore out and get rid of the stones. I don't know what to do with them. And you would have 1 ship maybe, just with the iron sponge. I don't know the numbers, but these things are possible. And I would hope that in this particular case, the steel sector of Germany would be kind of solid enough to be able to cope with this. I don't think that would ruin their business case. I don't think there will be a lot of leakage, and let alone carbon leakage, because there are other mechanisms like the carbon border adjustment mechanism that's placed into it. So I wouldn't be too afraid and wouldn't focus too much on that.
Okay. If we stick to markets, Eric, you told me in our conversation that we had before that for you markets are very important, and that you would like to discuss about which hydrogen markets should we address first in Africa. What are your ideas regarding your question?
Well, I think I will back what Frank already told us somehow. So there are already in Africa some quite significant hydrogen consumers in some industries. And I think that would make sense to address those markets first of all, because producing hydrogen domestically, you will avoid quite significant costs in terms of transport. And that would be an opportunity to decarbonize some of those industrial processes. So I'm thinking about refineries, for instance, the chemist industry, and then obviously ammonia production, the steel industry also, it's a huge opportunity, cement production. So already all the sectors have today a very large carbon footprint. So if you substitute, I would say, only a fraction of the gray hydrogen today that they are producing with some green hydrogen, that would be really, really interesting. So,
but the substitution comes at a price still. So it's not fully cost competitive. What are your ideas? A question to both of you. Who should pay for this price difference?
So we were talking about the LCOH earlier today, and it is clear that will be a strong contributor to the business case. But this is probably not sufficient, at least in the short term. And we can hope that there will be also some carbon prices that could contribute to improve the green hydrogen business case. And we already see it, at least maybe not in Africa, but in some other regions. Lately, we have seen that the carbon price have reached a level of $100 per ton in some regions. So this could happen also in Africa and some other places. So I think it's a wake-up call, at least for industrial players today.
Okay.
Question to both of us. So first, there are some cases, they may be rare, there may be niches, where already now it makes more sense to have a power-to-X or hydrogen solution than buying. What comes to mind, unfortunately not an African example, but a Brazilian, but maybe you find an equivalent. There are many airstrips in Brazil where you bring the kerosene by plane to the airport and then to fill it in other planes and fly out again, which is very, very expensive. So it is much better to produce the PTL on site and use it. And that's being done in those airstrips. There may be other cases where now with oil and gas prices being very high, that you reach already the threshold that a green hydrogen solution is better. I think for fertilizers, we are getting close to this point. And then from a state country perspective, there may be other elements which makes it maybe worth looking into it. There's this huge market that you want to exploit, and you have to invest a little bit in the beginning to be able to bring your country to a condition that it can take this market. And that needs some preliminary steps first, no? So you do this. Then there's a lot of talk by some countries to want to become independent from imports, which are very, very expensive, no? Oil and gas imports for any country. And if you can reduce that, that is very, very beneficial. So you put that into the equation as well. So I think it's not a like for like. You just compare a fossil product with a hydrogen product. There are more elements to it for a strategic decision, and it's long term, and there may be revenues later down the line.
All right, we are coming kind of to an end, and I only have covered one question from the audience. At the same time, I'm reading a bit. I think our discussion, what I see there, we have not really talked about desalination yet. In the cost calculations, is desalination, let me rephrase this a little bit, is this a typical part, or is this already covered in cost calculation, or with what kind of water do you do the cost calculation? Maybe to you, Eric.
Well, in many studies, I would say the desalination cost is not included in the LCOH. So usually we start from a ton water, I would say, that is purified and reached the right level of purity for the electrolyzer. So this is clearly an additional cost to take into account. And this is an energy demanding process, clearly.
Yeah. LCOH costs in Africa and in Europe. Okay, I think it's a very complex question. It depends, I guess, on the specific locations, also in Europe where you are. I think we don't have the time to cover all the different cases here right now. Can you imagine to build electrolyzers in Africa in the future? I think we've covered that. Maybe not the very large ones today, but in the future, definitely. What about the load factor of a typical green hydrogen system? So what do we have to achieve? I think here it's close to achieve an LCOE close to the grid. Okay, maybe in general, a more general question, how is the load factor driving the business case? And from my point of view, I come from microgrids in the very beginning. If you combine their wind and solar, for example, you can obviously increase also the load factor and the utilization then of, if we talk about hydrogen, of the electrolyzer. Is this something which we will see more often in the future?
I guess so. I think it makes sense definitely to improve the load factor. That will strengthen the business case moving forward. And we are talking sometimes solar, wind. I think a combination of both can be also a winning concept in some regions, at least.
Yeah. Then there's a question about small-scale solutions. I think they are the players who think big, like John Cockerill, and then there are other companies that think more small. I think they're very specialized players also for rural microgrids, for example, to kick out lithium batteries. Would you go for hydrogen, Eric, or not? Is there direct competition, what you say, in many cases for powering, for example, remote villages between hydrogen and lithium-ion batteries?
Well, as you say, I'm maybe more specialized in the large-scale business, but I do see applications actually for both batteries and also hydrogen in those for residential applications. So I do see that batteries are also getting better and cheaper, and they are working properly with a decent lifetime. On the other hand, small electrolyzers are also getting more competitive, fuel cell as well. So I think there are definitely a market for both of them.
And then there are sometimes combinations where you use batteries in the end to increase the load factor or to make better use of the electrolyzer. I know some cases here in Germany where basically you use the battery before the electrolyzer.
Correct.
This is maybe also an aspect, as long as the prices for electrolyzers are still pretty high. Of course, you would say they are not high anyhow. Yeah, what else? How can governments start in terms of taking advantage of the new hydrogen economy? Sorry, to mute myself. Maybe it's Corona. So governments, Frank, you're Mr. Government. You talk to governments, you work with governments. I think you're already in our discussions. Many of many things that have been asked here, we kind of addressed already in our discussions. But if you have two recommendations for governments in Africa, what shall they do?
I mean, they shouldn't lose any time to learn as much as possible about hydrogen and power to X, and start by anything that makes sense nationally. Any sector, any use case that is currently in use in this country or makes sense to be in future, start with this, learn as much as possible, get your network in order, look for possibilities outside your borders, and then go for export and big gigafactories later on when you have done the first steps. Because at the beginning, there will be many, many lessons to be learned. If I was the head of a government in a country, I would maybe let the United Arab Emirates learn the first lessons and then use those. And, you know what I mean? Yeah, but think locally. I think that's the most important.
Very good. What about approvals? There's a question about more on the total regulatory framework. If I want to produce, let's say, somewhere near the coast in Africa, green hydrogen, what kind of approvals do I need?
Depends who you want to sell it to and what you are producing. I mean, this is my one of my first interventions. We are not talking about hydrogen. We are talking about many different sectors. So know what you want to produce and who the off-taker is and where this off-taker is. And if this off-taker is in the European Union, you know the rules there, and you need a certification for this. And then you just call those guys to suit and certify and God knows who, and they do it for you.
And more on the production side, really not worrying. You've made that point very clear in the very beginning about the offtake side, but on the production side, more local regulation, let's say, in the African country. What do you look at? Are the, maybe it's not written here specifically, are the countries ready for hydrogen generation, or do you have to come up with a total new regulatory framework for producing hydrogen?
So, question,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, maybe country specific, really. As long as you produce for your own country, you maybe don't need very ambitious certification methods, but I don't know. I'm right. Sorry, I raised the question. Maybe Eric has a good answer.
I play the ball to Eric.
Yes. So,
sorry about that.
When it comes to the production, I mean, even though hydrogen today is produced at large scale from fossil fuel, let's say, to be completely clear, I mean, hydrogen production is something that we know pretty well, even though it's not by water electrolysis. So there are a lot of SMR which are all around the globe. So of course, this is very much state regulated, and we will need to work out also regulation in every country, because now we are going to rebuild those very large-scale hydrogen production plant, by water electrolysis, but obviously this will not be an issue. The work just has to be done, obviously, per country.
Are there any certifications or something you need? I think many in the audience, it's a solar industry, AFSIA is a solar industry association, no certifications from PV modules that you have to respect. Is there something comparable for the electrolyzers?
Yeah, I mean, each region has its constraint in terms of regulations, obviously. In Europe, we will work very much with ATEX directive, for instance. In the US, that will be another one. So you see this may vary from region to region, but I think this is something that we have to look at and develop in every single country.
Thank you very much. If I have a look at the time, we are 1 minute over. We started a little bit later also, but we got one panelist less. So I think it's a good moment to be back on track and to hand over to John with not being much too late. Thank you very much to the panelists. It was a great discussion. The two of you also gave very valuable insights into the project business. So it was my pleasure to have moderated this. I hope you did not suffer too much from my nasty questions.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, Thomas, and thank you to your two panelists. Just a quick word, Abdelaziz is really sorry that he couldn't make it, and hopefully everything will get better soon, and maybe he could even join tomorrow. So really, he wanted to share a little bit more about an important milestone that his company has made with regards to projects in Egypt. But hopefully we will get a chance to talk about it some later time. Thank you once again, Thomas, Frank, and Eric. A very interesting discussion. And now we are going to move into the manufacturing side of things, and more specifically electrolyzers. So if you just allow me to share my screen and introduce our next speakers. Who will be Justin Wu from Longi Hydrogen, more specifically. Many of the listeners, I'm sure, know Longi as a solar panel manufacturer, but actually Longi has also launched a department dedicated to hydrogen, focusing on manufacturing electrolyzers, and this is what Justin will tell us a bit more about in the next session. Quick words about Justin before I hand over the stage to him. Justin has more than 15 years experience, especially in the field of industrial gases. He's responsible for technical services and product planning at Longi Hydrogen. Most of his work previously has been done in the applications experience in the field of gas, and especially in the field of chemical industry. So very much focused on our topic today. And this is why I'm particularly happy to welcome Justin, as it combines really both the solar aspect of things, which he's specialized on, and also the gas and the hydrogen topic. So Justin, thank you very much for joining us today. I know it's already late in the evening for you, but thank you so much for taking the time. And please, I will make you co-host now so that you can share your screen and start your presentation.
Okay, thank you, John, for introducing. Let me show my screen.
Yes, it's there, and you can go in presentation mode. There we go. Yeah.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes. We're
okay.
Right, so you need to go back to the first slide.
Okay. Right. Let me check. Sorry. Okay, thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it's Justin from Longi Hydrogen Energy. It's a pleasure to share you the topic of my presentation. Renewable energy plus green hydrogen become powerful weapon for carbon neutrality. In the past 100 years, with the excessive consumption of oil energy, carbon emissions had made the contradiction between human and nature is on the verge of danger. So deep decarbonization is extremely urgent. In 2015, leaders from over 170 countries and regions have signed the Paris Agreement, and they propose to limit the temperature rise within 2 degrees centigrade and strive to be under 1.5 degrees centigrade as the long-term goals. In 2020, China announced the commitment for peaking carbon emissions by 2030 and reach carbon neutrality by 2060. Longi is convinced that development of the renewable energy will be the most powerful weapon to accomplish carbon neutrality goals. Let's see the schedules of major countries of the world to accomplish carbon neutrality. For the countries like Finland, Iceland, and Australia, and they have good environment and less heavy industries, and they take the lead of commitments on 2040. Most of the developed countries and areas set the timetable on 2050. For China, our policy commitment on the carbon neutrality on 2060. Countries with more than 17% of global GDP formulate hydrogen energy strategies, among which China and Europe are the most active countries. China and the European Union take green hydrogen development as the main goal of hydrogen energy strategy, and China has set the goal of 80 gigawatts from the water electrolysis by 2030, and the European Union has reached 45 gigawatts. Chile, Middle East Africa, and Australia will become major green hydrogen export markets in the future to meet the hydrogen demand of markets such as Europe and Japan. Under the consensus of the global carbon neutrality, hydrogen energy will make great progress and indispensable clean energy. In China, the cost of the hydrogen production from the coal and the natural gas is still relatively low. Hydrogen production by water electrolysis is subject to high electricity price. So far, it is still insufficient economic. However, we are seeing that when the electrical price continues to decline, the hydrogen cost of water electrolysis will be equal to traditional coal hydrogen production and the natural gas hydrogen production. It is predicted that the ratio of green hydrogen in China will increase significantly. Longi has been asked for several times, as a world-leading solar company, why did Longi enter the hydrogen energy field? Longi thinks without hydrogen energy, it cannot enter in deep decarbonization process. You can see there are 10 billion tons CO2 emissions in China every year. Only power industry contributed the 40% CO2 emissions of the total. China government already take measures to adjust the structure of the power supply. The renewable energy installation ratio is rapidly increasing. In 2016, the renewable energy ratio is 34%, and until 2020, the renewable energy will achieve to 41%. And you can see the right picture. 70% of the hydrogen cost structure of water electrolysis is affected by electricity price. Others are fixed assets, production, operation, and maintenance. And the photovoltaic provides green and cheap energy for hydrogen production from water electrolysis. 2021, the lowest bidding price for photovoltaic, the feed-in tariff of Middle East is only 1.04 cents per kilowatt hour. So if we use this cheaper electricity to produce hydrogen, we can get a very competitive cost. In addition, how to solve the volatility and the storage of hydrogen production from renewable energy is still a problem to be solved. At the present stage, thermal power still accounts for main form in China power grid. It is impossible to obtain real green hydrogen through the power grid. As you can see, thermal power accounts for nearly 70% of China's power structure, and around 80% of west of China, and even higher in north of China. And lastly, the compression of CO2 emissions from different ways to produce hydrogen in China. And first, you can see we use corn to produce hydrogen. When product 1 kilogram hydrogen, it will increase 6.6 to 19.4 kilogram CO2. And second, we use natural gas to produce hydrogen. When product 1 kilogram hydrogen, it will increase 6.5 to 10.8 kilogram CO2. And third, we use grid power to produce hydrogen. And when product 1 kilogram hydrogen, it will increase 42.5 kilogram CO2. So the only way to produce zero CO2 emissions is use renewable energy. So our vision is committed to be a world-leading company for hydrogen energy equipment. And since Longi founding, we have been committed to developing green energies. In 1918, we set out in hydrogen industry and carry out strategy researches. In 1921, Longi officially entered hydrogen energy field to provide solutions of green hydrogen. It's a vision of green hydrogen production in petrochemical. In daytime, use solar power to electrolysis water to get hydrogen to satisfy with the requirement of downstreams. And meanwhile, to consider the unstable of solar power at nighttime, a large scale of hydrogen storage is necessary. Reducing the cost of photovoltaic and other renewable energy power generation is the core of obtaining the low LCOH. In the past of 10 years, Longi has reduced the cost of photovoltaic power station by 19%, and there is still room for further decline in the future. And in addition, we are constantly looking for various ways to improve the power generation in the whole life cycle. And the rise of the non-technical costs restricts the continuous decline of the photovoltaic power generation cost. Now, we take a large-scale ground power station as an example. The technical cost is only 1/3 of the total, and the rest is the capital and the income, and the land and the operation maintenance cost, and the control and the controllability and the reduction of non-technical costs will bring cheaper power resources for hydrogen production by water electrolysis. And through the investigation of the traditional water electrolysis hydrogen production equipment industry, it is found that there are several problems failing to realize a large-scale production and over customization and manual production. Longi will standardize equipment design and the production and the manufacturing through the large-scale automatic production. At the same time, by expanding the R&D, will further reduce the energy consumption of equipment and achieve safety, efficiency, and smart equipment production. This is the milestone of Longi Hydrogen. Longi Hydrogen is registered in March the 31st, 2021. Yes, we are a very new guy, and as the first equipment plant located in China, Wuxi City, which is only 100 kilometers away from Shanghai, and the capacity of our plant is achieved 1.5 gigawatts in the end of this year. We schedule the capacity from 5 to 10 gigawatts in 2025. And now we have already manufactured 7 sets of 1,000 cubic meter per hour alkaline water electrolysis system for our customer. Longi Hydrogen ALK equipment is committed to achieving the lowest LCOH, and the modularized electrolysis adopts the standardized production with a compact structure and a highly precision. And the design of asbestos diaphragm is cancelled, which is more friendly to environment. And the single electrolysis capacity is 1,000 cubic meters per hour. The lifetime of the electrolysis is 200,000 hours, and the loading range is from 30% to 110%. This is our modularized gas separation unit and the gas purification unit, which can be widely applied in different industries, such as petrochemical, power, steel, and transportation. Through joint development with domestic and scientific research institutions, Longi has carried out innovations designed on the components of the electrolysis, which can make the single electrolysis the largest capacity and the low power consumption. Okay, I can show you the reference in China. So on April the 13th, 2021, Longi and Sinopec just signed a frame agreement for strategic cooperation in PV and hydrogen energy areas. On November 2021, Sinopec launched the world's largest photovoltaic green hydrogen production project in east of China. For this project, the total investment is $470 million, and the PV plant installed capacity is 300 megawatts. The annual capacity of green hydrogen is 20,000 tons. The hydrogen storage capacity is 210,000 cubic meters, and the transmission pipelines with the capacity is 28,000 cubic meters per hour. So it's a very big project. So, and the last, the Longi will build a sustainable ecosystem and promote the realization of the vision of a zero carbon Earth. Yes. So yeah, thanks all. Yeah, that's my presentation. Yeah. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Justin. Very interesting developments. We've been working with Longi for quite some time, always on the solar side, and now happy to see that there is another color, a green color on Longi's side. I wanted to ask some more questions about the product. And the first question is, it's an honest question from me, just out of pure curiosity, because I always look at things from the angle of solar. In the solar space, we are used to having a certain lifetime for the panels and a guaranteed production based on the number of years. How is it with electrolyzers? Is there also like a limited lifetime? Is there some efficiency decrease? Can you explain a little bit how we should look at the duration of an electrolyzer?
Yes, for the electrolyzer, maybe we just three key information for the electrolyzer. One is the capacity of the electrolyzer, and maybe for lower the LCOH, we can do a large stack for the electrolyzer. Maybe we now do the 1,000 cubic meters per hour. Maybe we now design and we just find maybe the 1,500 cubic meters per hour for one stack. And the other is the power consumption. Yes, it's a very key number. Yes, we do research and we do the new design how to lower the power consumption. It's very important. And the other is how to optimize the design of the whole hydrogen plant. Maybe we can use several electrolyzers to connect maybe one big separator and to share with a big purification unit that will save the space, save the room for the whole hydrogen plant, and maybe lower the total investment. Yeah.
A little bit earlier in the conversation today, especially from Dr. Innocent, and then also during the panel discussion, our panelists were insisting a lot on let's try to find local applications. Okay, great, we speak about the big projects for export, but there is also a real opportunity in local applications. What do you feel are probably the easiest local applications based on the economy and the industries already present in Africa specifically? Or maybe you can even compare with what you see from China. What are the low-hanging fruits, and where could we expect some movement the fastest?
Yes, for the applications, I think Africa and China also the developing countries of the world. So for the country, we just for the petrochemical and for some for ammonia for this application, maybe they will be the maybe for a quick step for the applications for the green hydrogen. Yes, for that's my opinion. Yeah.
And just for the listeners to understand, earlier in the panel discussion, we had Eric from John Cockrell, who clarified that with his company, they're really looking at the big projects. In your case, just to have an idea, are you also focusing on those big projects, just like the one you have described with Snapec? Or do you also have solutions which are more suited for smaller local projects?
Yes, we do have different solutions for the project. But for Longi, we just focus on maybe a large big project because we need our vision is to offer the larger solutions for green hydrogen. So for our stack, you can see we just make its capacity more and more larger. So we focus on the big project for the high-end green hydrogen. Yes, that's the Longi focus. Yeah.
Whereas I saw in the very active chat room, I think I saw a few messages from different government representatives who were looking to gain knowledge, to understand a bit better what are the possibilities in their own country. What would you recommend them? They should simply take their email address, send you an email and start a conversation, or is there any other advice you would give to them in terms of starting the national hydrogen?
Yes. I can share my email address to everyone. Every audience maybe have some questions, maybe have some problems, maybe have something interested in Longi hydrogen. You can send me the email. I will reply to you as soon as possible. Yeah.
Very good. We will make sure to do so. There were some questions from the crowd about are we going to get the slides? Yes, of course. These people joined a little bit later, but along with the slides, the recordings, and all the contact details of our different speakers today. I'm just checking if there is a question from the crowds, specifically. Yes, from Ben Said, what are the typical megawatt ratings for electrolysis modules? It's a very specific question.
Yes, for now, the typical megawatt sizing of our electronics is 5 megawatts. But for the end of this year, Longi will provide a new product, maybe 7.5 megawatts electronics, and it will be more efficiency, and the power consumption will be lower. So everyone wait and see. Yeah, we will give you the surprise. Yeah.
Very good. Then there's another question from Amit. Can we have a financial model to understand the benefits and feasibility of hydrogen over solar? I think that's an ambitious question.
Yes.
This is an important question, which I'm sure you're able to guide through when you go on more direct conversations with your counterpart. Because in the end, it's all about the lowest cost of production. LCOE, LCOH has been mentioned several times.
Yes.
And so, yes, again, I would invite anybody who wants to go a bit deeper into the details to get in touch with you directly outside of this conference, and then start a conversation.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Justin. We are perfectly on time. This is a wonderful conference today. It's never happened before that we are so on time for every session. So thank you so much. And
thank you all.
We are going to move on to the last two sessions of today. Very interesting sessions as well, because we're going to be talking about concrete applications of green hydrogen in Africa. And for this first presentation, I'm very happy to welcome Ian Fraser. Ian, yes, if you could just join us. There we go. Hello, welcome.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. You are going to be telling us a little bit about the work you've done with Anglo Platinum, and their hydrogen haul trucks initiative. And that's a little bit teasing for a crowd here. Before I hand over the word to you, I'm just going to do a quick introduction about you, so people know a little bit more about your background. I hope you are not surprised, but you are the most experienced of all our speakers in this conference. Amazing track record. Really, when we were preparing this conference, we were just totally blown away. And you already founded your company more than 30 years ago, RTS Africa Engineering. Quite impressive. So you've been working on this topic for a long time. And if I understand correctly, your specialty is the application of imported specialized engineering technology. So you will explain this, but you work with end users to help them and apply specialized technologies in their day-to-day activities, including hydrogen generation. And this is specifically what you will be telling us about in your project with Anglo American.
Indeed.
With all this being said, I'm done and I hand over the words to you. Thank you very much. And you can share your presentation by using the green share screen button at the bottom.
All right, I've done that, but I don't see it.
Yeah, there we go. It's coming now.
That looks good.
Yeah. Just open your presentation. Your presentation, yeah.
There we go.
Yes, and now you can just go back.
It's gone again.
No worries, just go back.
But it's got. There we go. Yeah.
There we go. And
okay.
Presentation mode. Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Excellent. So, can we get going?
Yes, please.
Thank you, John. Right, well, good afternoon, everybody. The presentation I want to do is just a little bit wider than only speaking about the Anglo project, but that is, of course, a very, very important and pivotal part of this. I just want to touch on something that's been cropping up quite a bit in the discussions with previous delegates. There's always this constant implication that to make green hydrogen work, we've got to somehow be cheaper and compete with fossil fuels. Undoubtedly, ultimately, it will be cheaper and will compete. But in the meantime, I think it's a rather moot question, because it's a bit like saying, you know, we're destroying the planet by using dangerous fuels and energies. But if it's too expensive to change, well, we just have to carry on destroying it. And it always seems to me a rather pointless argument. But that is beside the point of my presentation. And let's proceed. I seem to be at the end of it. I don't know how that happened. I'm sorry. Apologies.
Don't worry.
Okay.
There we go.
At present, Africa is a net importer of energy. And energy is imported in the form of fossil fuels of various kinds. And this is happening at enormous cost and damage to the environment. The question is, why? Why are we doing this when Africa has the resources to become a net exporter of energy? Africa has got vast open areas with strong solar radiation and also wind energy. These two maps, I'm sorry about the top of North Africa being cut off on this map, but I couldn't find another one. But this gives you some idea of the energy distribution in Africa. On the left, the solar energy, which is enormous, and the yellow, orange, and red areas all deliver better than 5 kilowatts per square meter, and the darker orange areas deliver better than 7 kilowatts per square meter. And that applies also to wind energy. And although it doesn't look so widely distributed, wind energy is in fact a very, very effective source of energy in Africa. But how can these initiatives be coordinated? Well, the African Hydrogen Partnership is going to be the pivotal organization in achieving that. It was formed at an inaugural meeting held in Addis Ababa in February 2020. There were over 40 delegates, and they represented private, public, and administrative bodies from Africa, Europe, and Asia. In fact, we were expecting a Chinese delegation, but this conference coincided with the outbreak of COVID in Wuhan, and so for obvious reasons, we missed the company of the Chinese delegation at that time. But how can these initiatives be coordinated by the AHP? Well, it would be the primary driver for the uptake of green energy for the African continent. Studies by the AHP have demonstrated that Africa can produce sufficient green hydrogen to satisfy all energy demands in Africa, plus a significant additional volume for export. And how practical is this in practice? Well, Morocco is already exporting green hydrogen to Europe through a pipeline. The Port of Rotterdam has a major hydrogen terminal, which is geared for the importation of green hydrogen in Europe. And Japan has indicated to us that she will buy all the green hydrogen that Africa can supply. The specific project that we touched on earlier, the conversion of 2 ore haulers at a very large platinum mine, about 2 hours north of Pretoria, electric vehicles powered by hydrogen fuel cells offer major benefits to the transport sector. These benefits include refueling times that are comparable to internal combustion engine vehicles, long ranges, plus space and weight efficiency. I have to interject a little comment here. People seem to be absolutely obsessed with battery vehicles at the moment, which do not meet any of these requirements. Sorry, I've gone too far. I'll go back. Sorry. And batteries take a long time to recharge, and also you ultimately end up with a box of unrecyclable, rather nasty chemicals. The future is definitely hydrogen. I felt I had to get that in. Anglo American is leading initiatives to promote the adoption of fuel cell electric vehicles, FCEVs, for commercial use, facilitating the creation of consortia to promote the development of hydrogen freight corridors in various parts of the world. And these include the UK, South Africa, and China. So we are involved at a mine north of Pretoria to convert 2 ore haulers to hydrogen power. This is a pilot project motivated by Anglo American. The power supply will be solar with a grid backup. Hydrogen generation will be by 2 null hydrogen alkaline electrolyzers. The bottom right, you can see a null hydrogen electrolyzer. That particular machine that you see there would produce around about 100 normal cubic meters per hour of hydrogen. This project will use 2 350 normal cubic meter per hour electrolyzers, producing a total of 700 normal cubic meters per hour. The scope of this project, well, this is an extract from an interview by Engineering News, our local technical paper, with the Senior Vice President of Business Development, David Bowe. David says that the long-term target is to convert the entire fleet of haul trucks at Mogalakwena mine to hydrogen, and also to introduce decarbonized hydrogen mobility at other Anglo-American mines. It's important to understand that just one of these trucks, when diesel powered, consumes over 900,000 liters of diesel fuel a year, which equates to enormous amounts of carbon emission. If you look at the total installed base of 28,000 mining trucks around the world, the emissions from these trucks is equivalent to the entire emissions from a country such as New Zealand or Finland. You should have got a picture of New Zealand there. If you decarbonize these 28,000 trucks that are in the hands of open pit mining companies around the world, you're roughly removing the impact of 150 million cars off the roads, says Bowe. So that's fine. That is one mine, and at the moment this project is proceeding very well. We expect to be operating these trucks on green hydrogen by June this year. But in the meanwhile, the AHP has been carrying out feasibility studies, and they've identified 3 hubs to create what would amount to a hydrogen valley. And these extend from Rustenburg to Pretoria, down to Durban, including the city itself, and up to Richards Bay, and inland to Limpopo province, centered on the Mogalakwena mine. That gives you an idea of the scope of the hydrogen valley. A second initiative, which is a much longer term plan, but this has emerged from meetings and discussions within the African Hydrogen Partnership, is that we foresee the establishment of a hydrogen road all the way from southern to East Africa, where all road transport would operate on green hydrogen. Roads running from Cape Town to Pretoria, with some links down to the coast, up to Harare, up into places such as Nairobi, Mombasa, Addis Ababa, and a couple of links inland as well. But this is all very well, but whenever we talk about these things, and I think possibly our audience for this particular conference may not be suffering from this complex, but I've found whenever I speak about hydrogen, there is an elephant in the room. Everybody thinks hydrogen, it is extremely dangerous. They want to discuss Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and of course the dear old Hindenburg never fails to get its mention in these discussions. Of course, most people listening to these conversations here will understand that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were atomic bombs, and hydrogen is not going to explode atomically all that easily. The Hindenburg, sure, that was a simple, straightforward thermal fire, but it was definitely due to extremely incorrect and dangerous handling of hydrogen. Null hydrogen, or North Hydro electrolyzers as they were at the time, actually carried out a test where a hydrogen-powered car with cylinders of hydrogen at the back and a petrol car with a conventional petrol tank were, the tanks were breached and they were set on fire. In 60 seconds, the hydrogen flame had to be begun to subside while the gasoline fire is intensified. Within 100 seconds, all of the hydrogen was spent, and the car's interior was undamaged. The maximum temperature inside the back of the vehicle was 67 degrees Fahrenheit. The gasoline car continued to burn for several minutes and was completely destroyed. If we proposed adopting the present system of storing fossil fuels in vessels as a new idea in this day and age, in a light metal, or even in some cases plastic tank, with an explosive mixture of petrol diesel fumes above the liquid in the tank, under the back seat of the boot of your car, or the boot of your car, would you approve this arrangement? I think not. We're used to it, and we're used to watching movies where cars crash and burst into flame and burn out. Well, of course, it doesn't happen every time cars crash, but it is a risk. However, with hydrogen, it offers far less risk of fire, and of course, it doesn't offer any chance of liquid fire. It is stored in the vehicle in a high-pressure vessel. It is very difficult to rupture this vessel. I would mention the vessels are typical pressure vessels. If you threw them down the stairs, they would survive without any grief, although they may do some damage to the stairs. If hydrogen does leak, it has a much lower density and disperses rapidly into the atmosphere. This is one cardinal rule that we need to watch, and I'm going to leave you with this thought. All hydrogen installations should provide ventilation, so that should hydrogen leak, it can disperse easily and harmlessly into the atmosphere. Thank you for your attention. In Africa, the future is definitely green hydrogen. Anybody have any questions? I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Ian, for the presentation. And yes, I'm sure there will be some more questions flowing in. But I do have some questions for you already. How difficult or how easy is it to transform a traditional vehicle into a hydrogen enabled vehicle, specifically for this hauling trucks? Does it require a lot of modifications, or is it a relatively simple process?
No, there is a fair amount of modification. Obviously, the diesel engines are removed. A fuel cell is installed, which will convert the hydrogen to electricity. With conventional vehicles, they can have up to a motor on each wheel. And I think that is actually what is happening with the ore haulers, because they are huge machines, as you could probably see from those photographs. I mean, you can sort of sit in the hub of the wheel and be quite comfortable. So each wheel would have an electric motor, which would be driven by electricity from the fuel cell, which in turn would be getting energy from the hydrogen storage.
You mentioned quite a large number at some point in your presentation, 28,000 ore trucks around the globe.
Yep.
I imagine, but I want to ask the question, I imagine that they are all equal to this potential of transferring to the hydrogen option, or is there maybe some limitation for similar trucks who would be in different regions?
Basically, they're all diesel operated heavy vehicles, rather like those illustrated in the slide. So there may be one or two very rare examples of an unconvertible ore hauler, but I certainly have never heard of it.
So this is a promising niche market, definitely.
Indeed.
And then another question, mostly from a solar person. Very often when we are talking solar with mines, one of the arguments is, oh, but I need a lot of space and I'm limited on space, or for some security reasons, not allowed to install some ground-mounted structures. How much solar are we talking about for producing the hydrogen required to fuel 1 or 2 trucks? Is there a rule of thumb just to get an idea about how much space we're talking about, how many megawatts we're talking about?
I don't have that number at hand, but it is quite practical. It is a fairly large area of solar panels that would be required, that is correct. But fortunately in Africa, one thing we have is a great deal of space. And obviously they're not going to be installed in areas that are ultimately going to be mined, but those areas exist all around mines, and especially open cast mines. And this does not present any kind of obstacle or problem. Space is not really an issue with this. I'm sorry, I can't answer in terms of actual numbers. I can get that answer if you're interested to follow up.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. We do have many questions, so I'm just going through them, and maybe somebody has asked some version of it, but yes, definitely we will follow up on this, no problem. Just looking at some more questions that have flown in. With 32 years of experience in hydrogen, what challenges did you have, and what main challenges did you have, and how did you overcome them? It's a life achievement question, but I think it's an interesting question for somebody with such a long experience as you.
Well, it was one of those strange things. We weren't really looking for getting involved in hydrogen, but in the early 90s, what was then Longi Hydrogen electrolyzers were looking for people to represent them in specifically South Africa, but as it turned out to be most of sub-Saharan Africa. And one of your previous panelists, EODev, actually eventually became our contact with what was by then Nel Hydrogen. But we were appointed as Southern African agents for Longi Hydro. And we began to, first of all, service existing electrolyzers, and then, of course, to promote the technology all around Southern and East Africa. At that time, of course, the applications were all industrial. It was a relatively small market. We were looking at steel annealing and glass production, peripheral alcohol manufacture, various very specialized applications. The enormous market for hydrogen as an energy transfer medium had not been really seriously contemplated at that stage. We actually came on board about 1996.
Last question, if you don't mind, before we invite Fernando to join us and to tell us about his projects and the technology that his company is rolling out. Last question from Keith. It ties in a little bit to the first question I asked you about the complexity of things. Keith wonders, how does the hydrogen vehicle compare to an ICE vehicle, so internal combustion engine, as far as the complexity is concerned? How many components can break down over time and may need maintenance?
Okay, the first part of that question, could you repeat it?
How does a hydrogen-powered vehicle compare with an traditional diesel engine, in this case, in terms of complexity? And do you have a lot of maintenance to schedule if you are planning on switching to hydrogen? Or on the contrary, is it a relatively maintenance-free type of engine?
It will, in principle, be considerably less maintenance than any kind of internal combustion engine. Your hydrogen is obviously stored under pressure. It gets converted into electricity in a fuel cell. The fuel cell may need new electrodes 5-6 years' time. which is, and also it's a very simple job to change them over. And for the rest, it's electric motors, which are among the most reliable and stable of mechanical electrical devices that we have. There's really nothing can go wrong with them except an occasional bearing, and that's going to take years and years. So the simple answer is a hydrogen-powered vehicle should be extremely reliable and require far less maintenance than our conventional internal combustion engines, which, if you think about it, are quite complicated.
Well, again, I mean, we're also working on other electric mobility applications here at AFSIA, and indeed, when we are comparing with the engines, the ICE engines that we have known for many, many decades, one can ask himself the question, why have we made that choice? It seems to be a similar situation with hydrogen-powered vehicles. So hopefully this will open the way to a very interesting market for you and for many other players. And definitely, I'm sure there will be a lot of people following up with you after this conference. There was a few questions about, can we get Ian's slides? Yes, of course you will, as well as the recording. And so we will also share all your questions so that Ian, but also all the other analysts and presenters from the 2 days conference will be able to follow up with you directly if you have a specific question for them. So Ian, thanks again. Thanks for sharing about the work you do. And we will now move on to our last presentation of the day. It's a very packed day. Yes, Ian?
No, I'm just saying thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And before we move on to our next speaker of the day, next and last, I will present him briefly to you, Fernando Salvados from EODev, a French company. He's calling us out of Paris today. Fernando has 10 years experience as electrical engineering and previously worked with a company called Peak Scientific, which is a company specialized in hydrogen, nitrogen, and zero air generators. He has a strong international experience working in Latin America, Europe, Africa now. And for us, it's always a pleasure at AFSIA. We like languages. So it's always a pleasure when we come across other people who speak many languages, French, Spanish, Portuguese, English. I think maybe even a little bit of Hungarian. You might need to explain this, Fernando. And
that's right.
And Fernando got his MBA from La Sorbonne Business School in Paris. So this is a little bit of the background of Fernando, but I will now hand over to him so he can tell us a little bit more about EODev and what the company does, and more specifically this project they're working on in Nigeria. Fernando, you should just have received a message for co-hosting, and you should be able to share your screen and turn on your camera now.
Okay, thank you very much, John, for this presentation. Let me try to share my screen. Just let me know when you see it.
It is there. You can put it in presentation mode, and up you go. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. So yeah, thank you very much for being present. I work for EODev now as a business developer, mainly for international customers, for both onboard and land-based products. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the company and the products that we have, and also the project that we have around in Nigeria. We just got like 20 minutes, so I'll try to do this the quickest way possible. But if you have any questions, I'll be pleased to answer all of them. So basically, this is a picture of a major event that we have made last year in Paris in the month of May. EODev is a French company, so we are based in Paris area, and we have lightened up the Eiffel Tower using our product, land-based power generator powered by hydrogen. So this was a totally zero emission event, and it was to show people that our technology was mature and that we were ready to go to the market. Just to give you some briefing about the origin of the company. So we come from the boat, basically from the Energy Observer group, which has constructed a totally autonomous vessel navigating for more than 45,000 miles with no emissions, electrolyzing the seawater, using this with the full cell, using solar panels, wind turbines, and etc. And basically, EODev, which is Energy Observer Developments, we were created in 2019 to commercialize and industrialize the technology that was once tested in the boat. So basically today we have two products. We have one for the onboard solutions, basically for propulsion and hotel load, for zero emission navigation, but also a land-based unit with the full cell inside to replace diesel gensets. So both of them are based on hydrogen and full cell technology. Some key numbers about the company. So as I mentioned, we were created in 2019. We are today 60 passionate people. We have raised 25 million euros. We are 4 patents, production capacity of 600 units. So this is really important because we are in the industrial phase now. It's not only a prototype, it's a final product, and with 3 sites in France. So you see some of our shareholders. We got Accor, Energy Observer, Groupe Moneyeur, Telem, Insurance, Toyota as part of shareholder as well, Amfuel. And as industrial partner, we got Toyota because all of our full cells are provided by Toyota, the same model we use it in Toyota Mirai cars, EV system, basically for batteries and power management system, and an area, which is, this is the production facility. Basically, our products are being assembled in an area, and also in Paris area, and they will also be responsible for maintenance and technical support of our units. This is basically the product that we have and that we'll be focusing on this presentation. It's a zero emission power generator using hydrogen as a fuel with an efficiency of 50%. So a very efficient product. It's a reliable one because we have tested the unit, the full cell on the boat. We have integrated this to the first customers. We have released the first units. We are in industrial phase now. Easy to use. We have developed a totally plug and play solution. We are supplying also a pressure regulation box to adjust the pressure, and it's also scalable. So we are talking about 100 kVA genset, but can go up to 1 mega VA or more using units in parallel. So it's totally scalable. To provide you some additional information about the component and the technology. So basically, this is the pressure regulation box. As I mentioned, it's a plug and play solution. So basically, the customer only needs to have a hydrogen storage system, and then it connects the bundle to this pressure regulation box. We drop the pressure to around from 11 to 15 bar, and then we connect it to the gensets. We use basically the hydrogen inside of the full cell. This is the full cell compartment. As an electrical chemical reaction of this, from the oxygen and the hydrogen, we produce electricity. So there's no combustion on it. There are no moving parts, which makes this equipment very silent as well, if you compare this to a diesel genset. And as an output of this chemical reaction, we just have hydrogen and heat in the outlet of it. So there are no carbon emissions. There are no NOx involved to that. We only have water, which can also be reused. So it's hot water, not drinkable, but that can be reused for toilet and etc. and heat in the outlet of it. So you see here we have a hybrid solution basically between the battery and the full cell. The battery is a 44 kilowatt hour that we have inside of it. Basically to have instant power and also to manage the efficiency of the overall efficiency of the product between the battery and the full cell. So basically the full cell recharges the battery when we have a lower consumption. When we turn the equipment on, is the battery that takes the lead and that takes the charge. And then we recharge the battery as we go on with our power management system. So it's a totally autonomous and intelligent system to manage the power. And here is DC AC power conversion. So basically in the outlet of it, we have AC voltage, 400 VAC and 230 VAC. And here you see all the levels of current that we provide with the sockets and also the fuse box, power locks And it's also important to mention that it's a connected system. So we have a 4G SIM card inside of it. We have different sensors inside of it. So we collect all of data. The customer can check the power consumption, the hydrogen level they have, the temperature of the fuel cell, temperature of battery, error logs. So we can also do predictive maintenance before the unit breaks down. We can intervene. So this is really great function for that. Now, give you some more information about the project that we have in Nigeria. So basically, we are going international now. We have closed deals with different distributors worldwide, in Canada, in Australia, but also in Nigeria with our distributor Buserve. And we have a project. I'm not mentioning the name of the company and exact the site because this is still quite confidential, but basically it's to replace the diesel gensets. As you might know, in Nigeria, most of customers, they use diesel gensets as a major power source power. So basically right now they're using diesel gensets and they're looking for zero emission solutions. And then we are trying to provide the GH2 to replace these diesel gensets. So basically we're trying to provide a zero emission solution for this customer. They have a requirement of around 1 megawatts per day, which is quite massive for its industry sector. So basically they are using these gensets 20 hours per day, and they require that as a prime power in constant usage. The hydrogen daily requirement for this project is around 2.5 tons per day, which is also quite massive if you consider the hydrogen production facilities that we have today. And here you can see the picture of our pre-series assembly line in France, and also the possibility of stack the units. So basically for this unit, we are considering an average of 29 GH2 to provide this quantity of power, and they can also be stackable. So basically that's the solution that we are providing. The customer hasn't yet received the unit, hasn't yet closed the deal, but this is an ongoing project that we have with our distributor now in Nigeria that we hope to conclude in order to reduce the carbon emissions for these customers. And the biggest challenge that we have for the moment, it's to get this hydrogen. So that's the main barrier that we are identifying today, because as you see, we have a daily requirement of hydrogen of around 2.5 tons, which is quite massive. And for the moment, we don't still have the solution locally in Nigeria. So we are still looking at that and looking to provide this solution as soon as possible to this customer. But basically, this is important for you to know more about the application, the possibilities. So right now, basically, we can replace diesel gensets with these units with no emissions, with no pollution, and with no noise, basically. So that's the solution that we are providing to customers in Nigeria. This one, it's more a concrete project, but we are also in touch with different customers from the telecom and etc. that are also looking for replacing their gensets. If I give you some more information about the product itself, so here you see the dimensions of it, the total weight. So it weighs about 4 tons, each of them. We have 100 kVA power gensets with this voltage at output, as I said. So 400 and 230, we're going to have 480 volts by last quarter this year. We can work both in 50 or 60 hertz. Regarding temperature, we can go from -15 to 40 degrees. We are using the Toyota fuel cell, which is a proton exchange membrane. The battery is an EODev system life pole in 44 kilowatt hour. So like to reiterate, no emissions, no NOx. Regarding the noise levels, it's a very silent solution because we don't have moving parts, we don't have combustion inside of it, but the noise levels are still under test. So we are trying to check all the official measurements from 1 meter distance and 7 meter distance, and also the volume of filtered air that we are trying to measure right now. That we might have that shortly. Regarding the suppliers, so 80% of our components come from Europe. So as I said, all of our products, they are produced in France, and even the fuel cell from Toyota is produced in Europe, in Belgium today. And as I said, 80% of components come from Europe, 60% from France. So this is also important for us. We have a good network of dealers today. So as I have mentioned it, we have a partnership with an area which is assembling our units here in France, but also distributing and doing the maintenance in the countries where they are present. So today, like in Africa, they are already present in Algeria, but they are also present in France, Belgium, Luxembourg, Poland, Romania, Moldavia. And we also have a distributor in Australia today, Blue Diamonds, and in Canada. So it's AKA Group. We are right now closing deals with different distributors in the UK, in Netherlands, and etc. So the idea is really to go international and cover the whole world. And as I have mentioned, we have our distributor in Nigeria to this project of this customer that I have mentioned it previously, but also additional ones that will be able to provide service and also sales locally, which is Bullserve. We have closed this deal with them. It's been a couple of months ago. These are some examples of hydrogen storage systems that we have today that we use here in France to do demonstrations, but also to rent the products in France. Just to give you an idea about the solutions that we have today in Europe, and also the autonomy that we have for each of the solution, considering 80% of the load. So we estimate a consumption of around 4.24 kilograms of hydrogen per hour at full output. That's what we need for our power genset to provide 100 kVA of power. So these are some examples of hydrogen storage and also autonomies that we can have. From like small customers and small applications, we can use just bundles like these from 13 kilograms, and we can go up to 1 ton if we have a huge consumption, and if we have multiple units. So that's basically the case that we are considering for Nigeria, because they will be consuming 2 tons per day, roughly. So we need to look for bigger solutions for hydrogen storage, and these are the purity that we need for the hydrogen to work. So it's not any kind of hydrogen that we can use for the fuel cells. The quality of the hydrogen is important, and basically it's 99.97% that we need for the units to work. These are some events that we have made basically to replace diesel gensets and to show people, and during events that it was totally feasible to replace them, and that we have against like performance, because we have more efficiency. We need to mention that for diesel gensets we have 35% roughly of efficiency, our units 50%. And we have also identified that we have oversized applications normally. So for this example, we have replaced the 50 kVA, but at the end of the day, these are the graphs that we supply to customers. And at the end of the day, we see that we just had peak consumptions of 15 kVA. So basically the 50 kVA they had before, it was totally oversized. So this is also important to mention. The customers, they have access to all of these diagrams, so they can see the power consumption, the hydrogen levels they have, the battery they are using, and etc. So this is quite interesting. I'll not get into the details of this one as well. Just important to mention that we also take into account the avoided CO2 emissions. So for this example, it was used during 3 days. This is our unit in the heart of Paris. We did a demo, and we have saved 156 kilograms of CO2 during 3 days. So this is also great, and we have consumed 11 kilograms of hydrogen. So this is also something that the customer has normally along with our unit. We have also did a demonstration in the desert in Saudi Arabia, and we have consumed 1.23 megawatts, and we have saved 1.24 tons of CO2 during this demonstration. We can also do customizations of the unit. So this was the one for Loxam. They have bought one basically to rent the units. This is for Enedis. We have also made basically to replace the electrical network while they are doing some works in the network. And we were providing power to around 50 houses in the French Alps. So this is also a good demonstration we have made during 5 months. It's still ongoing, but that was a great one. And this is also great to mention. It can also be a solution to recharge electric vehicles. So this was a demonstration we have made for Toyota Motor Europe in Belgium, as you can see, and that we were providing power to electric vehicle. So this is also a no-emission solution for a non-emission application for the mobility. So I stick to the time. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope it was clear. And if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Fernando. Yes, it was very clear. And yes, there are many questions. So I'll just shoot them at you. Some are easy, some are less easy. Amadou is asking, what is the lifetime of your device? And lifetime and efficiency. Is there such a way to describe it?
Yeah, sure. So basically for the full cell, that's the main component that we estimate the lifetime in hours. So it's 13,000 hours. Basically, it's not only the lifespan, but it's the certified efficiency that Toyota supplies. So basically, we guarantee that the full cell is providing power with a 50% efficiency during 13,000 hours. After that, we're going to have more heat than power in the outlet of heat, but the customer can still use the unit. It's just that the efficiency is going to drop. But we recommend the full cell replacement after 13,000 hours. And this is possible to do. It's not necessary. It's not needed to replace the whole unit, only the full cell compartment.
Other question, how do you compare, like you've shown several examples of your replacing a diesel generator. How does one of your units compare to KVAs in diesel generator? Like on your side, you have one size, or do you have different sizes? And does this match exactly a 50 kVA, 100 kVA, 500 kVA traditional diesel generator?
Basically, it's the same thing. So we use the same ISOs that they need for diesel gen sets. Our product is 100 kVA as prime power generator. So basically, we can replace a diesel gen set of 100 kVA. It's not exactly the same principle of functioning because we take the charge much more quickly than a diesel gen set. As soon as you turn it on, you got the 100 kVA. But basically, as ISO, if we talk about ratings and power ratings, it's the same application. So basically, you can replace 100 kVA diesel gen set by our unit. And as I have mentioned, we can use multiple units for more power. So if you require 300 kVA, we can have 3 units. If you have 1 mega VA that you want to replace a diesel gen set, we can supply you 10 units. It is also stackable, so you can reduce the total surface footprint, and then we can go up and up. And we can also have a hybrid solution between diesel gen sets and our gen sets with batteries and etc. So basically, it's to optimize the power. So if the customer just have a peak of consumption, they can keep their diesel gen set that will only run for a few hours a year, and then the normal charge we take it with our product with no emissions. So this is also possible to use. We are able to communicate with different devices.
All right, those were the easy questions.
Okay.
A difficult question. Atarva and an anonymous listener are very interested in the costs and how it compares to traditional diesel generators.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's not possible to give an exact figure, but at least some order of magnitude and some feeling for the listeners here, because we have several questions, I think, of people who are in Nigeria running on diesel generators, and they would like to know if this is a feasible solution for them.
Yes, of course. So basically, it's not possible only to compare the total price of purchase of a diesel gen set in our unit. Why? Because as I mentioned, we have more efficiency. So we are talking about 50% efficiency, and we have more energy in 1 kilogram of hydrogen. So basically in 1 kilogram of hydrogen, you have basically 33 kilowatt hour of energy against 10 kilowatt hour in 1 liter of diesel. You know, so basically we have more energy in 1 kilogram of hydrogen, and we have more efficiency in our product. And also we have low maintenance because, as I said, basically we're replacing filters on these units. And then that's why we are talking about total cost of ownership. So we have performed a calculator where we check the total cost of ownership of the whole unit, and we compare with the diesel genset. So it's if we compare only the price of the unit, it's going to be 6 times more, let's say, of a diesel genset from 100 kVA ratio. Like the exact figures, I invite you to contact us, and then we can send you the quote for that, because it also depends on the volume. So if we're talking about just 1 unit, it's going to be one price. If we're talking about 20 units, it's going to be a different one, and also depends on the region, you know. So it's quite difficult for us to estimate and give a price for that. But as I mentioned, it's important to consider total cost of ownership. So this is something that we can do if you have the run hours of the diesel genset, if you have the power, and then we can do this comparison of how many units that we need, and then we can provide you like how much is going to be more expensive for you to have this solution rather than the diesel genset. But it's important to mention that the hydrogen prices are dropping and the diesel prices are increasing. So this is also that we take into account in the total cost of ownership. We do estimations in like 10 years, like to estimate the differences. But it's quite complex to discuss just the price of the diesel genset and the price of this product, because this is not the same application. So yeah, I hope I have answered the questions.
Yes, the answer is please contact you, and then people will discuss and find out. Yes. Other question, other difficult one, and you were transparent about this in your case study for this company in Nigeria. There seems to be a problem of feedstock. How do you think that project in Nigeria will solve this problem of actually procuring hydrogen?
Yeah, basically, that's the barrier that I said. So unfortunately, we don't have this quantity of hydrogen available in Nigeria for the moment for this customer. So right now we have the interest for this company. It's a big company, and we have our distributor locally working on that as well. But right now we are contacting people that are interested in producing hydrogen. Some people, some companies here in France, but also in Europe, to provide this production facility in Nigeria. So that's the way we are thinking about this, because it's a massive quantity, and we are thinking about producing it locally. So that's when we're looking for the solution. And if there's somebody hearing that can supply this solution for the hydrogen production, you can contact me. We'll be more than happy to discuss about this, but we are looking for this local hydrogen production. For the moment, we don't have it.
Maybe a stupid question, but would it be realistic or conceivable that this client sets up its own hydrogen production facility for his own consumption?
Yeah. Actually, we'll be considering if there is a company that's interested in producing hydrogen in Nigeria and providing this hydrogen to multiple companies, that's better. It's far better because we have economies and it's more efficiency regarding that. But since they are looking for this alternative, like as soon as possible, let's say, depending on the project and all of the costs and the overall efficiency of the system, this is something that we can consider, because this is a big company. They have different units in Nigeria. So this is just the first project, but they might be multiplying this for different factories they have. So this is also something that can reuse this hydrogen that's produced for other factories. So this is something that we are considering for the moment. But it would be much better if we could have like companies like we have here in France that can provide these tube trailers already with 1 ton of hydrogen, and then we can just connect to our power genset and produce power. That would be far easier, but unfortunately we don't still have that. So we're looking for solutions,
You will get contacted after today, no worries.
I hope so.
And then last question from Pascal. Since there will be business in Africa, because you are very ecstatic and your solutions can replace a lot of the diesel generators that people use here in Africa. Since there will be business for you in Africa, is there an opportunity to produce some of the parts in Africa as well, or assembling your units, or doing something a bit more local in the African market?
Yeah. For the moment, we are not yet considering, of course, that we are identifying because we have different markets in the US, in Australia, like in Asia, North America. So we might need to have different assembly lines in the near future. But for the moment, we are with this production facility of 600 units per year that we intend to provide customers for the moment, for the short and medium term, let's say, with our production facility in France. And as we evolve and as we get more market demand in different countries, we might evaluate a production facility in other countries, but not for the moment.
All right, all right. Well, thank you very much. There's many more questions for you specifically, Fernando.
Okay.
Make sure to share these with you.
Yeah, sure. I'll be more than happy to answer all of them.
Because it's been a long day already for the listeners and also for me. So I would like to conclude today, and just for those of you who are still with us, just a few words about upcoming events, upcoming AFSIA events. We have, if you like today's and tomorrow's e-conference on green hydrogen, well, for sure you should like our next big e-conference on storage technologies. It will be at the beginning of May, so I warmly invite you to sign up for this one. We have the AFSIA Solar Awards, the 2022 edition, which will take place live back with AEF, the Africa Energy Forum. And we really look forward to attending an event physically, just like everybody has been expecting, dreaming about for quite a long time. So we will be there in Brussels in June. And the applications are open, by the way, so make sure you participate. And then we will also have our own conference together with our friends from Renew Africa Biz. It will be in Cape Town at the end of September and really focused on renewables investment. So if you're a company looking for project developers and looking to fund those projects, this is the place. If you are a project developer and you are looking to connect and meet new financing partners, this is definitely the place. This is the schedule for tomorrow. We'll start at 2 again, Central Africa time, with Matt Cleary from INEA Consulting, who will give us an overview of the global business cases for green hydrogen. It will be followed by a technical panel discussion, where we will be welcoming Dr. Innocent again, plus a few other speakers. We will have a country deep dive specifically focusing on Algeria. We spoke a little bit about Morocco, about Tunisia, about Namibia, South Africa, but this will specifically focus on Algeria. And then we will finish our 2 days conference with a presentation from Alexander Huppertz from Getinvest, during which he will present a little bit about the European Union programs and support activities for African green hydrogen. So a very interesting program again tomorrow. I hope many of you will find time to connect with us again. And I will stay connected just for a few more minutes. So if you have a last question that you would like to ask to our presenters from the day, this is the moment. And then I will be closing today's session and we will meet tomorrow again. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you to all our speakers. Thank you, Fernando. Thank you,
Thank you very much.
With us. And enjoy the rest of your day and see you tomorrow.